Greetings, sir and sirettes, and welcome back to From the Depths with me, Lathrix, and of course, welcome back to our hovercraft, currently in the sandbox mode. So in today's episode, we are going to try and take as much land from the Steel Empire as possible. We are already showing that we are almost victorious in every single battle against them, even if the enemy do have a resource advantage, and because they have lost a resource zone, it means they can't even reinforce as quickly as they were before, so it's about time we finish off the Steel Empire and move on to either the Twin Guard or the Lightning Hoods. I am somewhat curious to see what the Lightning Hoods hovercraft are actually like. Are they really good, or are our hovercraft going to simply defeat them? It would be weird to move on to a faction and not need a new design, but that is very, very possible. Either way though, this is version 6 of the hover tank rather than the standard version we were working on before, and it's had some pretty significant changes, although it looks pretty much the same from outside. So in terms of the changes, a lot of them are fairly minor, but they add up to quite a significant change like I just mentioned, which makes the tank at least fairly different from its old version, and that's why the old version and this one are probably going to coincide rather than this one completely replacing it. So the first change is that the engines have been massively scaled back, and as such are incredibly more efficient. So not only do they produce less power, so less power is being used per second, to generate that power per 100 power made, less fuel is used, and that was probably the most roundabout way to say that. Essentially, the engines are now very efficient, but because of this, the tank is also a little bit slower, so it only goes 38 meters per second, whereas the old version was around about 60, so quite a big difference there. In terms of the weapon, which I would say is the biggest difference, is it's gone from 215 rounds per minute per cannon to a grand total of 325. Which I would show you, but I've just fell through the tank. So, now I'm back at the top of the tank, brace for a loud noise, and... So all of those are the exact same shells at the exact same gauge as the previous tank, but since they are firing over 100 rounds per minute faster, they are going to do a lot of damage, especially against very slow-moving, very large opponents. So this is actually now becoming one of my most effective turrets, which I'm really, really happy with. Unless the enemy has a ridiculous amount of armor, these are simply going to cut through the enemy, especially since the fragment shells with inertial fuses completely ignore shields, so very happy with that. The final major/minor change I've made is that it is now a little bit more heavily armoured, so it shouldn't die quite as easily against things like particle cannons, and this has even allowed me to add a couple of surge protectors, so even EMP weaponry shouldn't be too bad. Although I should also mention, because of all this, it's a little bit more expensive, something like 800 materials more, bringing it all the way up to 22,414. Still not a very expensive vehicle, still very cheap when you compare it to the faction vehicles and the old version of the Angron, but certainly more expensive than the old version. I feel like this is going to be a more heavy-duty version, which isn't going to be used quite in as high a number, but overall, I'm really happy with the tank, and I think against the Steel Empire, it's going to be the final design we make for this, because honestly I just want to move on to a new enemy now. We have definitely been against this for far too long, and I want to see some new designs. So let's get back into the campaign, and let's destroy the Empire. A random side note before we get into the campaign, this is the menu screen which shows several of the faction vehicles fighting each other, and just look at the new flare effects and the new missile effects. They look so much better than their previous incarnations, especially the flares. I may have to use flares more now, purely because it's pretty. Here we are in the sandbox mode with our two hovercrafts, the newest version of what is now called the Bloodletter hovercraft, as it's going to be mass-produced and on the front lines of the Blood God's army, so the name Bloodletter was certainly very, very fitting. I've also had a quick mess around with the two cannons which make up the turret, and now each of them is firing at 360 rounds per minute, so a little bit of an increase yet again, by sacrificing a bit of armour as it goes into the hull itself. So hopefully these will act as very aggressive anti-heavy armour on the opponent's side. I've also slightly changed the shells, so they now have 2 additional warheads at the cost of 60 meters per second to the shell speed. So a little bit slower, a little bit less accurate, but with loads more fragments. Hopefully we can even deal with heavy armour blocks. I'm not sure if we will be able to, since fragments deal well with metal and lower, and tend to struggle quite a bit with heavy armour, but at least in this regard we can have a better chance. So, as soon as they're ready, we're going to send them into a battle, have a quick test, and then we're just going to march forwards until we find the Steel Empire's base. Okay, so I've been distracted. What we're going to do before we get into a fight is quickly rework the Craw. I've been meaning to do this for quite some time, and since we're now using what I would consider my best tank so far, I think it's worth a little bit of work on the Craw to make this one a little bit better as well, so the entire group can benefit. The first thing I'm going to do is completely remove this back section of missiles. Although I do love the fact it's angled, which is very, very cool, it is a massive waste of volume and honestly is a vulnerable point on what is a quite tanky vehicle. So that's going to be removed. The missile system is going to be placed in the middle instead, which will then benefit from all of the armour around the sides, and then we're going to convert it into a laser designator rather than using the current active radar seekers. The reason being, which is twofold. The first reason, the active radar seekers can now be distracted by various things, which before the recent patch they simply couldn't be, and secondly, you can't really aim an active radar seeker. It simply goes after whatever is largest, which a lot of the time is not the target I really want the missile to go after. By using the laser designators, we can directly influence where the missiles are going and thus hopefully be a little bit more supportive of the Bloodletters. So, let's get to work. Well, here's something. We've just found the Twin Guard's main base, and it's right there. So I am a little bit curious as to where the Steel Empire's base is. If this is the Twin Guard, which is the yellow faction, then where would the Steel Empire's base be? I was going to attack here and then go down, but I have a feeling that perhaps the Steel Empire is in the very corner. We could, and I don't think I will, but we could attack the Twin Guard, and then try to push all the way north through them, whilst the Steel Empire is not able to really attack us, since we have crippled their economy already. And I'm really tempted to do that, because if we can beat their first force, we have a real chance of just knocking out a second faction in one episode. Well, it's going to happen. Let's see if we can defeat the Twin Guard. Now, this may be our death sentence, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and we need to go that way anyway. And since both of the factions both have strength 100s in the way, we may as well go through the second faction, to which we can fight their main base. I'm actually a little bit scared of this, but we'll see how it works out. Now, how do I get back to yelling at them for war? There we are. Okay, Twin Guard, I have declared war on you, and I've insulted you, so there. And the problem is, after that, there's a very good chance they'll mount an attack on our main base, but I do have enough resource in my 2 bases to start making some of our hover tanks for a defense force.
Receiving.
Go forth and kill. Behold the Twin Guard, and oh dear, that is a lot of flyers. That is actually not what I really wanted to see. So, there's a lot of neurons on the enemy team, I have no idea what they are, and there is one very giant, I'm not even going to try and pronounce that. Great. Do you have a feeling that we may have just doomed ourselves? Now, thankfully, the hover tanks are not bad against aircraft. Although they're not suited for it, their weaponry can normally hit flyers, and if it does, there's a good chance, if they're not too heavily armoured on the wing segments, to completely knock off movement parts. Oh, wow, look at those. Pause. Oh no, look at those! Oh, missiles! Wow. That is really, really cool. I imagine half of that is on a spin block? Is it? Or is it just all curve? I don't even know how you do that, but that looks really, really cool. And we're dead. We're just dead. Okay, good luck, guys. I kind of believe in you. Look, we hit a top. Yes, there we go. Oh, great, they're healing each other. Oh, please dodge that. EMP. Well, now I'm very thankful I've got some surge protectors. Oh, I wish I had flak. Oh, I wish I was using flak. Flak would have been doing so well right now. We're not hitting enough shots. At all. How's the Krull doing? There's the Krull. Oh, the enemy are even using smoke! Our missiles can't lock on because I've swapped over to starting laser designators. Oh, some of the missiles have hit, some of them are dying. We aren't dying to the missiles just yet. Both hover tanks are still operational, although not doing overly well. Wow, that is a swarm of enemies. Okay, we just knocked out another flyer. If the shells hit, it's almost a one-shot kill. It seems like their armor is very, very mild. And I really wish I hadn't swapped out the Krull, because the Krull's new version is not doing well here, and I think its old version would have done better. Come on, hover tank, I believe in you. I did not know that the Twin Guard in this campaign was so flyer-heavy. I really thought it was similar to the regular campaign, which was just monstrous designs which were all connected to each other. Not swarms. Didn't expect swarms. Okay, there we go. He is falling to the ground. One more is going down. Apparently it's a he as well, according to me. Is it smoke, or is it just the laser designators are not as accurate as I hoped? Okay, I'm going to jump over onto the Krull. We're actually doing really well, by the way. Which one of you is the Krull? Krully. You have a Krull. Okay, I'm actually already on board the Krull. I didn't need to do that. I'm swapping you. Just right now, you are now going to be the mighty, the wonderful active radar seekers, as are you. There we are. And we're going to have to add some more ammunition. More ammo added, and more missiles are now being launched. Their missiles are having a really tough time hitting our tanks, and because we're using surge protectors, the EMP element is actually doing very poorly. There we are, the missile's doing far better now. Every one of those missiles just hit. Our hover tank just took out another flyer. Oh god, please move, please move, please move. No, 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 no. Their missiles are really weak. I think it's purely because they are using fragment, but a good amount of their missiles is based around EMP, which we're actually very resistant against. I made sure of it. So not much is really happening. The worst they could maybe do is take down our PID systems, and judging by how they're moving, they've done just that. They just can't kill us. That's really weird. I think they have a single fragment warhead, and that's about it on their missiles. They're definitely built around destroying smaller craft, and these hovercraft are not allowing that. As you can see, the EMP doesn't even leave the outer layer of metal, although that one is now having a tough time keeping up. The missiles from the Krull just narrowly missing that enemy and destroying that enemy even though it was already going down. The shells from that tank are missing wildly. Come on, hit the target, you know you want to. I think we're going to win here. If we win here, we can repair. We can perhaps add a second Krull, because the missiles are doing really well, now they have a higher number. And then we can go towards their base. Yeah, I would say, if we were making smaller vehicles, or this was the first enemy we were facing, this would have been much more difficult. We simply countered them. Even though we weren't really suited for anti-flyer, we've countered them completely, at least in terms of their weaponry simply not being able to breach our 3-thick hull. It's definitely breached the outer layer several times, but both on the turret cap and on the sides, it just hasn't got through, and the EMP was worthless. Also, the trails for the missiles look awesome. I wonder how expensive the enemy are. I think it was something like 4,000 resource, so this wasn't really a massive force by the enemy. 5 of these only adds up to 1 of my tanks. And building bigger generally is better in this game. Come on, could someone please kill this thing? Thank you! You hit the wing. Not the best, but at least you tried. There we go! Let's hit it again! This one is taking a beating and surviving. Why? There we are! Finally detonating it. I guess since they're so small, there's not really much protection in terms of their ammunition storage. One final opponent there, trying desperately to right itself. And this is what happens when you have 3 warheads. Hurts a lot more. Victory is ours! Surprisingly a one-sided battle there. Oh, look at this poor thing. If we had flares, though, we would have avoided almost all of that damage. They were definitely IR missiles, infrared missiles. Is there actually an enemy left? Why are you still fighting? I don't know what you guys are fighting against now. Apparently it's over there. I can't see an enemy on the map. Is that it there? No, that's a missile. I legitimately don't know what we're after right now. It's over here, it's over here, it's over here. I think the game may have broke. If we ended the battle now, would we lose? You would lose everything. But we've won! Oh, come on game, don't break now. Is it under the ground? Well, apparently, now, I still haven't found the enemy, and I'll figure out that in a second, but apparently we had taken much more damage than I originally thought. This hover tank is essentially dead. It's lost everything but its AI, it's lost the PID system, it's lost its ammunition, it's lost its turret. It's dead, so we definitely lost one of the hover tanks. The second one is actually quite badly damaged on the inside. Only the Krull really survived without damage, so that was closer than I thought it was, to be perfectly honest. If they managed to take out the turret of the second one, or did any internal damage on the Krull, that would have pretty much made it even. But as it is right now, I think what we're going to have to do, and it really annoys me to do this, but I think we're just going to have to take the battle end and then rebuild my vehicles. Even though I'm going to lose the resource, I can always grab it back later, since it will count as allied resource on the floor, because I have no idea where this enemy is. It's not in space, it's not anywhere on the map, it's apparently in the northerly direction, but that's it, I can't go past it. So either it's flew off the map during the fight, or it's got stuck somewhere. I really don't know what's going on. As soon as I started to repair my forces, the enemy finally spawned in, and it's at 90% health and has 555 volume. Now, the reason why I'm so confused about this is I've seen craft fly off before during a battle, and then it just become utter insanity try to kill it. But in this case, my ships, my vehicles, wouldn't lock on to where the enemy was. They wouldn't start moving towards it, and they simply wouldn't register it as existing. And I decided after that last clip to go all the way over here to figure out where the enemy was, and I couldn't find it. It was at least 10,000 meters away, if not more, if it had flew off, and I simply don't think that had happened, because the allied forces would have still went towards them. So right now I'm going to spawn this in to have a quick look-see at what the enemy is. It's this little thing. I wonder what happened to it which caused such a problem. I mean, right now it should win. I don't even think my forces, yeah, there we are, have enough health to do anything, so hopefully once it defeats these it will go back to its tile, then I can go back into his tile and destroy him. There we are, battle finished, excellent. Now please go back to your tile or something. Are you really going to follow the blueprints? I mean, it's fine if you do, I'm just going to repair over here. The game is really glitching out at the moment. It's trying to force me to start this battle, but it keeps on glitching and then resetting itself. Early access games are early access. This is really a day for bugs at the moment, and I suppose it should be expected, since this is a couple of days after a patch, and normally, with games like this, bugs do tend to sneak in every time, so I'm blaming that on the fact the vehicle vanished in the first place, and the fact my lovely little satellite is currently locked in permanent, endless non-combat. Once again, let's fight this force, and of course by this force I mean just the last little flyer that bugged out. You know, there's such a good chance that it didn't bug out and simply I messed up somehow, but from my perspective and from looking at the footage, I can't see how that could be. Oh, we are in a really bad position here. We should not have spawned here. Good, the enemy's dead. Everyone turn off their AI. These hovers are not suited for uneven ground, as you can see. So this flyer has also managed to make me spawn in a bad place, and thus cost me even more resources. That flyer has single-handedly cost me at least 40,000 resource. 40,000 resource I could have used to build 2 more tanks or 2 more Krull. So, with that flyer finally dead, let's pull all again, let's get them repairing, and now I'm going to add an extra Krull in its current form and an extra tank before facing off against their main base. Which means I'm going to have to harvest resource for a little while longer. That is a very large group of Steel Empire. Oh no, that's not what I wanted to see happen at all. Also, my voice just completely broke then. Apparently insomnia is now causing my voice to break. Well, aren't I just a healthy potato? Oh, that is actually really, really bad. That will definitely win against us. I don't know what to do there. My ambitions are about to be destroyed. I could suicide against the Twin Guard. I'm not sure how much force they have there. I think it's 100, which I believe is the maximum. At least it certainly seems like it, but what do I do here? They're also faster than us, so we can't outrun them because we have the Krull, which is too slow. So, slow down time to almost a pause. We have some cultists over here, which just got finished. If I can select them, that would be fantastic. I believe they're somewhere around here. There they are. Hello, cultists. Which will act as a defense, and I'm actually going to start to move them over to there. But that will win. And that's not me being, oh, let's hype up the drama of this battle. No, this will win. That is far too much force. That's 2 Scarabs, I believe. Yep, 2 Scarabs, a Kingfisher, a Brush Cutter, a Gannet, an Orion, a Kingfisher, and a Hadron. Yeah, that's far too much. We got lucky with the Twin Guard that the force we ended up fighting just could not outdo our armor. They were simply very light, very fragile vehicles. I can't imagine they're meant to be in that high a number, honestly. I guess we'll just have to do this fight. I can't think of what else I can do here. Just back off a little bit into this territory to get them away from my satellite, and we're going to have to rebuild them again. Bit of a weird moment there. The game almost crashed, but it seems like everything's okay now. What on earth is going on with the enemy missiles? They're going all over the place. Are they meant to be anti-missile missiles? It could be that. They could be interceptors. Okay, one of the enemy is now defeated thanks to the combined forces of missiles and a load of fragment shots. One of our hover tanks has lost its turret and tanked a shell pretty well there, although it is now going off to its side. Oh, one of the enemies is AI dead, and that was from the particle cannon of its ally. We were hit by the second cannon shot, but thankfully it didn't quite stop us. Missiles taking out the next enemy. Oh lord, we're going to win. These tanks are so much better than I expected. Although that one isn't shooting anymore, why not? That's took some damage somewhere, which is preventing it from firing. That is the weakness of only having one weapon. It's very easy to have one weapon disabled. So both of the tanks are now offline, at least in terms of being able to fire. Missiles from the Krull are just doing absolutely loads. It seems like the Krull might be our main battle vehicle at the moment. I think they're flares. They're definitely flares. Look how pretty they are. Hadron shot, hitting us very lightly on the back. The Scarab's heavy armor just absorbing so many shots, showcasing how powerful stacked armor can be. I do adore the Scarab. It's something like what I would try to build. Oh my lord, that Scarab's cannon though! Oh, that was actually glorious. I don't even care if it was my vehicle. That was awesome. Swarm of missiles heading towards it though, and taking off everything! So close. Our other tank is now back online in terms of its movement thanks to its auto-repair. The Krull is firing again. And I do apologise to the people who think missiles are overpowered because I am kind of showing that off right now. The Krull has become very deadly. Triple warheads. Take that. Although it did deal enough damage to us to at least warrant a repair, we've also run out of material now, so we're not repairing. Missile lightly hitting the back. If that Hadron was actually fighting against the Krull, like it should be, it would probably win. And that's the only reason why they're probably going to lose. It's that close. Because these aren't going to be able to repair. We don't have the resources for it. But the Krull still has at least one missile silo currently online. And as long as this doesn't target anything... Uh-oh. Good. As long as it doesn't target the Krull, it's going to slowly kill it via single missile volleys. Okay, what the hell, Krull? Oh, we have resource now. Why do we have resource now? I don't know where I just got that resource from. Perhaps one of my vehicles got close enough to an enemy corpse and stole it. Fantastic. We won! Oh, this is a weird day. Why are we winning everything? Oh, Lord. PID... Are you upside down? Well, the two main tanks are upside down, but the Krull... The Krull won. And honestly, it was almost purely because of enemy just bad... Not bad AI, bad positioning, and then the target systems not being able to figure out which one has guns and which one doesn't. If it was going for largest block count, it would have ended up going against the Krull, because as the weapons get destroyed, of course, the block count lowers. But because it doesn't do that, it kept on focusing on those two, whilst the Krull just sat here. Although apparently its movement systems have been disabled. Well, it was a victory. We're really sodding badly hurt, but it was a victory. Repair up, I've got a second Krull currently being built, and I've got 2 more tanks being built, 1 at each base. It turns out Lathrix is a bit of a dum-dum, but at least he can talk in the third person just fine. But it turns out I had removed the material gatherers from the vehicle we had stole quite some time ago, and then never re-added them. The reason why I removed them was perfectly fine. I had to remove them because they were in the way of the repair work I was doing to make this vehicle a fully functioning vehicle again, so it can use its guns and move around just fine, and if we ever have to, it should be okay in battle. Even some of its detection systems are now back up and working, so it's probably not the most accurate of things, but it should do pretty well, especially with its rather large missile launchers. The problem is, because of this, well, we haven't really been repairing our vehicles around here particularly quickly. We are now, but we weren't before. So very soon, after this point, we should have the second Krull up and running from this group, which can then attach to our original group, which means we will have 3 Krull and 2 of the Bloodletters. A 3rd and 4th Bloodletter are being built on our 2 other bases. I think what we do need to do is make a permanent connection between the bases, as using patrol vehicles just isn't as consistent as I would otherwise like. It's working, but I prefer buildings. Here we are, the second Bloodletter is now built, and by the looks of things, the Twin Guard just sent off a new group. That was really fast. and there's a good chance that will come to attack us. Now, I'm not quite sure why that's not directly attacking us straight away, but either way, I am going to have to start building some more forces even before we attack, just to make sure our land rig is defended, because I'm fairly certain if we lose this base, we technically lose the game. Now, are those Krull finished? Yes, they are. Okay, so there we are. We have 3 Krull, and we have 4 Bloodletters, and we have 4 Cultists. I'm actually feeling pretty good about this. This should be enough to take out the enemy main base, depending on what the enemy main base is. I have no idea what that force is doing. It's aimed at our main base, then it stopped aiming at the main base, it's gone over here, it's came back, it's gone over there. This is a very weird group, and I have no clue at all what it's trying to do. I really think that perhaps because of all these zones being maxed out at 100 for the Twin Guard, because of course we haven't been attacking it until now, it's trying to reinforce tiles, which are then maxed out, so it's being sent back. Why don't you reinforce the tile we just took? Or does this count as our tile now, so you can't try to reinforce it? I am not good at predicting the enemy's movements. Our satellites have picked up the Steel Empire's base, the Goliath, just northwest of the Twin Guard's base. It's weird to see 2 bases so close together, but since they are allied till the end, it certainly makes sense. It's things like this, though, I would really love to see expanded in future patches. The game is still very much in early access, there's still a lot to be done, and this campaign is one of the newest ones, so of course it's one of the least polished. But I would love to see factions help each other if they are allied, fight each other if they are enemies, make truces and pacts with you and other factions as things progress, and just a general diplomacy system which has a little bit more depth. Because at the moment, because they are so fragmented, because of how they reinforce, and they don't particularly have overly difficult designs, we are reaching a certain end point with this campaign, which is a shame to say, because I've had a lot of fun recording it. It's easily been one of my most fun experiences so far in From the Depths, but honestly, after we defeat these 2 factions, there's very little stopping us completely conquering the map, even if we don't use missiles or something else which people find overpowered, which, by the way, everything has been told to me has been overpowered. The lasers have been overpowered, the missiles, the advanced cannons, the cram cannons. People seem to think everything is too powerful, but it's just when you get better at this game, building very effective guns becomes very easy, and limiting yourself in that way is somewhat difficult. And I'm rambling on about something here, because the game just needs a bit more depth. Anyway, our forces are about to be combined, and it's time to take out the Twin Guard. Such a weird turn. It's a sad, sad day for the cultists. Although they are surprisingly good against enemy medium and light armoured opponents, I am going to be using them today as they were meant to be used in the first place, as recon tanks, as light tanks which are only there to scout the enemy and probably never return. They are going to go against the Twin Guard all by themselves and tell me what the enemy are using, so that we can counter it a little bit effectively. So far we've been very lucky in that the tanks we have built are countering the Steel Empire and apparently are countering what little we've seen of the Twin Guard, although I do suspect we got extremely lucky with the enemies we've been fighting, because if we're going off the Twin Guard from the main campaign, they are really scary and they use lasers a lot. I didn't see lasers, and I didn't see heavily armoured opponents or even multi-vehicle, single-vehicle amalgamations, just very light flyers. So I need to know what the enemy are using so that we can plan accordingly. If they are using a lot of flyers, we can easily convert our tanks into flak tanks. If they are using very, very heavily armoured vehicles, we could swap over to armour-penetrating rounds from our fragment rounds. So, cultists, you are brave. Go. I would also like to mention, though, the cultists really wouldn't do well in the main group and would probably be torn to shreds by friendly fire. So I am saving them a little bit of humiliation here. They are being brave rather than cannon fodder. This stupid little group decided to follow our cultists, so I had to get them all the way around the lake to the other side, which means they are completely cut off now, but we didn't expect them to survive anyway. So we have the Juggernaut with its immense amount of resource, but surprisingly low volume. We have a flyer called the Irritation, which is awesome. We have another Irritation, we have the Neuron, we have that thing I can't pronounce, we have the Brown Recluse, we have the Cleric, and we just have loads of others like the Rend. So, a lot of things to see. Let's see what they are. Okay, pausing time, and a lot of the enemies have spawned in and instantly destroyed each other. Oh, that's why you're low in volume, because all of your volume is in the second section. Now that's what I was talking about. That is the type of vehicle I was expecting in the first battle. That is the Juggernaut. And honestly, I think we can take it. Not with the cultists, but I think we can take this. It's heavily shielded, but it doesn't look particularly heavily armoured. I believe that our fragment shells will be able to deal a crushing blow. What I'm going to do is change all of our targeting priority systems to focus on the largest enemy, which should result in us attacking this. The other enemies are what we've seen before, and then this is the Cleric, which is using lasers, so we do need some smoke defense if we want to go down that route. There's loads of missiles and a laser from this fellow, and then the Transformers are kind of failing here. Oh look, it actually is somewhat like a Transformer. It looks like these are legs. Is that meant to be an arm? Or does it have 3 I have no idea. Okay, just carry on. Go, cultists! Yes, you're all in combat, good. Okay, the cultists are firing. They have released their missiles, which are going towards this target, it seems. They're dodging a lot of the enemy fire, so speed is definitely key here. That cultist is really focusing on the enemy main and doing absolutely nothing. Wait. Is that friendly fire? Those missiles are not ours! Okay, they've got a big problem. One of their vehicles, I'm not so sure which, but one of their vehicles has missiles which does not have a friend or foe. Also, I do apologise for my speech right now. I am suffering from a bout of insomnia and my speech is all over the place. There goes our first vehicle. Those shots, okay, so it has a lot of barrels which are firing armour piercing. That should do not very well against our hover tank. The laser, on the other hand, will be a problem. They actually killed each other. Without any help from me, they killed it. Well done. One of our cultists is down, 2 of our cultists are down, 3 of our cultists are down. I'm about to be down if I don't move away from this cultist. I think we have a real chance here. With 4 Krulls, sorry, with 4 Bloodletters and 3 Krulls, I think we are going to be able to win this. Especially since 2 of the enemies just died. Ooh. Pretty. Before we get into the battle, let's have a quick look-see at our forces. So we have 4 Bloodletters and 3 Krull. I am actually of the belief we are going to win here. The Krull have proven themselves to be absolutely deadly with their triple warhead missiles, and our lovely hover tanks have proven themselves, despite their quite low cost, to be very hard to hit, and when they do get hit, they tend to absorb a lot of damage. And of course, they are pretty good against heavily armoured opponents, so yeah, I think we're going to win here, I really do. Now watch me get proven wrong. Well, thank you, Twin Guard. You are going to make this infinitely easier for me. They have just split off their entire force to find and destroy our satellite. Now, to be fair, our satellite was close to their border, but it certainly wasn't inside of it. So, I don't know why they're doing this. I guess this is their first actual attack against us. which honestly isn't too bad, considering we have been at war for around about 5 minutes in real time, or at least in game time, between pauses and between battles. That is around about the time you would expect the enemy to attack us, considering we are on ×2 reinforcement speed. But by doing this, it means they have split off their force from their base. So now they are two completely separate forces, so I don't have to fight them at the same time. Thank you, tactics. Our vehicles have their first taste of combat as one giant force versus what was once the Twin Guard's guard unit. So hopefully we can defeat these fairly easily with minimum casualties, and so we can move straight to their base whilst they are not reinforced. They won't be this way for long because they are reinforcing twice as fast as they usually would because of our difficulty settings. The Krull are all at the back, and of course our hover tanks are somewhere in the middle. Let's begin. The enemy have spawned in very, very close to each other, and here are the frag shells coming from our hover tanks, already taking out one of the enemies from the sky. The 3 remaining enemies, though, are being able to fire back, and let's see what they're doing. Okay, it seems like they're going after that hover tank, and not really doing all that much to the back of it. In fact, the lasers are missing our vehicle. At least it was until it stopped still for some reason. The fragment shells are hitting this tank and doing a fair bit of damage to the bottom section. One of the tanks has been defeated. Should I call that a tank? What should I call that? One of the enemy mechs has been defeated. The missiles from the Krull have yet to actually reach the opponent. Well done to shells this time. As we can see, the enemy shields aren't really doing all that much, but that is a lot of repair work. Very bad aim there from one of our tanks, not quite sure why that is. Possible damage on our part. Its lasers seem to be offline. Okay, missiles from the enemy. Will they be enough, though, to stop our hover tank? Ooh, all EMP, so probably not. Like I said before, we are very good at resisting EMP. Okay, that's just a platform. I wish you weren't going against that, but still. I must say, I am somewhat disappointed by the Twin Guard in this campaign. Now, what's happening to our missiles? Why have our missiles not been firing? I really wish it wasn't completely just raining and fog covered. Oh, the missiles are going against the enemy flyer, which I didn't even realise existed. So in that case, these cyborgs, these mechs, have been defeated solely by our hover tanks. Which are definitely doing a very good job. I am very happy with the bloodletters. Especially, as I've said a lot of times, because they're quite cheap. They're only just over 20,000 resource each, which really isn't much at all. Definitely better suited against medium armor, though. They're having a little bit of trouble with these. And there are the missiles from the Krull, with their glorious new trails. I've said it a fair few times during this video, but I absolutely adore how they look. Ooh, actual heavy armor. No wonder we've been having a tough time. Health-wise, I think that was a crushing victory for us. That's 2 damaged and being destroyed. Apparently there's an enemy over here being focused on by 3 of our hover tanks, and the missiles are now hitting it. I would be very surprised now if the Twin Guard's Juggernaut survives this onslaught. The new, more aggressive version of the Krull is doing absolutely fantastically, and the Bloodletter is probably one of the best vehicles I've ever made, so with both of them combined, goodbye Twin Guard very soon. It's time to move forwards. And look at all this resource on the floor for us to collect and repair with. The enemy fortress has already reached a strength of 32. Now, thankfully, it seems like it has to make a complete group before that strength actually becomes something. But either way, that certainly shows how fast the enemy are currently reinforcing. So, let's have the bloodletters nice and up front this time to make sure they draw fire away from the Krulls, which are definitely doing very well at the moment as their new missile carrier self. And of course, they are still holding a refinery each, so they are very, very explosive. Don't really want them to be attacked, which hasn't really been an issue so far. It seems like for some reason the bloodletters draw a lot more attention than the Krulls do. Pause time for a second as I had them all off a moment ago while doing some testing. And so it begins. The fragments are all hitting directly in the center. Although their armor-piercing shots are going for us, most of them are missing thanks to our speed. The enemy have a really tough time fighting the hover tanks, I've noticed. Oh, look at, just for a second, before the missiles hit, look at all of those fragment shells hitting. That is glorious. Of course, we can't really see what's going on because of the new smoke effects, but even so. Massive damage to the back, some internal damage on the center, and the side is being really, really hurt. Then here come the missiles to hopefully go through the center. Not doing as much as I would hope. A lot of reflex there, a lot of very bad hits. But there goes the side, so half of the mech is already offline. The fragments definitely doing their job. This feels mean. This feels really mean. Oh, 2 damage, and that wasn't because of the missiles. The missiles are actually going for the bottom. Just the fragment shells on their own have definitely beat that. Okay, all turn off. Now it's been defeated. The bottom section seems to be defenseless, so I'm going to go and capture it. Wow, I feel really bad this episode. We've just no force on the enemy team. Oh, that was weird. No, I said off! I'm guessing you already shot those. Okay, I'll be right back as soon as I... No! Oh, I thought I'd said 2 damaged. It says destroy this. So I'm just going to mosey on over and steal the base of the enemy. Actually, whilst I'm on my way, and before I forget, I would like to say one thing. I've been a little bit untruthful about the difficulty of this episode. If we can go to the actual difficulty, there it is. As you can see, I've actually increased the difficulty of the difficulty modifier to 1.25. So I would just like to say this as a little bit of a mini criticism about the campaign. The enemy Twin Guard at the moment seem to be a bit too easy. Their damage is low, they seem to be incredibly inaccurate for some reason, really not sure what's going on there. And they seem to be very frail, because these are the same vehicles which have been fighting against the Steel Empire, and I've had a much tougher time. Even though they generally win, I do have casualties. Admittedly, the Krull's missiles have been improved, but the old missiles they used to have 5 warheads. The new versions only have 2. Although I incorrectly said it had 3 earlier, even though you can clearly see they only have 2. So, a bit of a criticism about the Twin Guard. I do understand with the volume limit they're quite difficult to get working, and a lot of respect for their style, but this was a little bit too easy, and normally I don't really complain about that, but sometimes it can be a bit dull if that is the case. So, if I was an AI, which maybe I am, I would be here, personally. What's in here? Though I think this will be the holder. Okay, that's the holder. So let's go ahead and find the AI on this thing. I'll even allow it to repair itself. There it is at the back. Is this the... No, or is that just general purpose? No, that is indeed the AI, so it would be best to get out and find that shield. And like I say, I will allow it to continue to repair itself with its repair bots, because that way I'll get a little bit more resource when I steal this thing. It can't quite sustain its shields. Also, I haven't leveled up in so long now because of my level. I'm level like 400 or something now, and it's so difficult to level up. Not that I really need it too much, I've got all of the items and everything, just it'd be nice to see the old level up screen pop up occasionally. Hello? And you are mine! Welcome to the winning team! Oh wow, that looks really cool in our colours. So that's that, the Twin Guard have been defeated, although they have a lot of forces scattered around. They can't reinforce anymore, they can't send attacks, they can't do anything. All they can do is stay where they are, so as long as we avoid them, we'll be absolutely fine. Now, as for this, let's go ahead and add some material gatherers, because this should be an infinite resource gatherer. Are those ion thrusters? I wonder why this uses ion thrusters instead of regular thrusters. There's probably a reason, I just can't think of why you would do that. There we are, let's pull all for a second and put you into the resource zone. There we are. Now, is that harvesting? It should be. Yes, it's going down, fantastic, and that is indeed an infinite reserve, so once again, spawn in the Juggernaut's base. And there we are, we have the Juggernaut. It seems like it's a hovercraft as well, because things are moving by themselves. I think it would look a lot better using a PID system. Using the rotors like this in the corners causes it to be really, really rocky. Either way though, it's harvesting resource for us, and from here we can plan our little mini campaign. The game almost crashed there, so sorry for me suddenly going silent, or perhaps a corrupt section of video. I probably just cut that. What I was going to say is we can now plan our mini crusade into the Steel Empire's territory to finally clinch the victory of the northern western section. The northwestern section, in fact, now that we have defeated the Twin Guard. So sadly, today's episode wasn't the most exciting. I was really hoping for more from the Twin Guard, and perhaps I just fought somewhat weak opponents. It's very possible they weren't the best of the best the Twin Guard had to offer, and honestly, a lot of the time, their deaths was from friendly fire, and the fact we were countering them quite well with very EMP-resistant vehicles, which just weren't being affected at all. I'm sure if I had made our vehicles purely out of metal with no surge protectors, we probably would have lost a couple of tanks. And right now, I really need to turn off these shields. Either way, I'm afraid I am all out of time for today's episode. If you have enjoyed, then of course, likes, favourites, shares, comments, all that good stuff helps out me, helps out the channel, and most importantly, shows that From the Depths is a series you wish to see continued in the future. In the next episode, we will finish off the Steel Empire, and then find a new opponent to attack. Hopefully, the White Flayers and the Lightning Hoods can provide a true threat. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.